Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Welcome to video number 48 of the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Okay, I've got most of the drapery resolved here, and working on the wings now and modeling them up. Now, they were composed earlier, and now it's time to put some shape into them because they've been pushed on and touched while I've been working on her. And but they're coming good. I'm gonna move the camera over here in just a second. I've also been able to do some work on her face. Take some time. It's been, had a weekend involved here. So you get away, do something else, come back and look, and you can see small discrepancies. Having a different vantage point also helps a lot. I'll tell you a quick story. One of my biggest mentors, really good fine artist, he's a painter, he's just brilliant, his name's Gilbert Young. We've been really close for a lot of years we got involved with protesting the big Chinese Martin Luther King statue they put up in Washington, D.C. because they said nobody in America could do it, which was a lie. They just wanted to make money. And the government didn't do it. It was other people that did it. They just wanted to get bank, okay? But he had done a bust, was really proud of it. Just out of sketch one up out of clay. I wasn't as crazy about it. And so when I got there, I says, you know what's wrong with your bust? And he says, what? And I says, it's them cowboy boots you're wearing. And he thought I was stupid. He got pretty indignant. What are you talking about? I said, okay, just humor me for a minute. Because it was sitting there on the table looking straight at it. I said, see, I would have done it right because I'm wearing boots you got to tie. I'm wearing work boots. He says, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. I said, okay, well, just humor me. Okay, pretend you're wearing boots like me that got laces on them. Stand right here in front of it. And he did. And I says, now bend down and tie your boots. And he did, pretended, thought it was stupid. I said, okay, now look up at your bust. And he says, wow, man, what's wrong with man? Now I see what's wrong with it. The problem is he was used to doing something in 2D, painting. And when you paint, you have a nominal amount of actual foreshortening depth in terms of physical measurable depth. You may have some layered paint, but you can paint something and then paint something on top of it and paint something on top of it to create depth. When he got down and looked up at his bust like that, he could see that he had discrepancies in how the face was shifted. And a lot of times that happens when people are trying to put emotion into a face, and instead of moving the actual head or modifying the anatomy the way it would normally articulate, they model it in an emotive way where they try to put expression into the face, and they may get one eye up or down or the face turned, but the problem is that face, the plane of the face, ends up being tipped like this, and it makes it just not right. So this is a really good way because I've been able to study her for a few days. I've been able to take care of some stuff with her face, and she's still not perfect, but she looks better. I like the way she looks. Well, let's move the camera over here and look at this wing work and see what you think about these feathers. Now, I've already got the feathers put together in terms of layout. So that composition's done. Now I want to put some volume in them and make them look more interesting and not as flat. I can carve them very flat. Sometimes that's what you do when you're trying to meet a budget, work within parameters. But to have feathers look fluffy, it's very easy at this point to take and model in a little bit of clay and cup these ends so that they're turned up. And once this all looks good, then I can go ahead and model the wings, model the individual feathers, so that I'll have a better understanding of what I want to produce when I actually carve the stone. And so I'll go through and work this. When I carve the stone, we'll see the edge may not be too fine. We've got to look and see. I want to overlap on this side a little bit to try to make it look like they've got better volume. and that she's not part of the stone, that it's more that she's standing in this alcove, in this grotto, in this whatever you want to call it. But I wanna have these feathers look airy and puffy. I probably won't cut them paper thin underneath. I mean I can, but there's no reason to. I'll probably mark them and drill them to a certain extent. But you got to think about, we've got to be able to put something on this stone to pick it up and handle it. It's going to be laid down and stood up because it'll travel laying down. So I'm going to have to work on it laying down, stand it up to finish it, and then we're going to have to lay it back down to crate it to ship it for, I don't know, 400 miles or something. It's going to Kentucky. So it's got to go, you know, it's got to go a fair ways. And so, but I can start doing this, start making this look very flourished. This is going to do a couple of things. When we put this out in the cemetery, it's going to have real good light quality because the light will capture, it'll brighten these upturned pieces of the feather. It'll brighten this a lot, and it'll create nice dark shadows underneath. And so the dark shadows, that value is what we're trying to produce. And so as long as we get a nice clean edge and maybe a slight undercut, we don't have to make these paper thin way back up where they'll be fragile. So I'm going to keep modeling this and adding clay. Then we'll come back and we'll smooth up the individual feathers. Take your tool. The reason it's got all these different shapes on it, and I can roll this in to smooth that feather up instead of sweeping it with my finger or removing material. I don't want to remove anything just yet. And I can make a feather that's got a lot of incidental detail. And this is an approximation because I'm not going to go in here and carve every little line exactly like this on the job. That's not what this job is. I could do that. I could put very specific lines in, but I'm trying to capture the form and the flow. And if I can make this feather anywhere as close to this spontaneous looking, it'll be really nice. This will be a really nice job. And so you've got to produce something that you can carve. You've also got to understand where it's going and what you want it to look like, because this is your practice. Just like, you know, I don't have to do her face perfect here because we're going to enlarge it, but I want a pretty good idea where I'm going when I start doing this model for the portrait face, because I've got to show the customer, the patron's got to be happy with it. And if she sees this and the real model looks like her ugly cousin from down the road, that ain't gonna happen, man. That won't work. So, but by doing this, we can make a feather that's pretty nice without having to kill ourselves modeling detail. We also didn't do this at the beginning of the stone, of the clay, because a lot of this detail would be lost. Now, put a little bit more right here. I want to bring the camera over to show you just exactly what we've done, what's been accomplished here. And so you can see how nice this detail comes together like this in a relatively simple way. And then we'll trim the center of the feather, put a line down it for part of it. Remember, that spine's going to come down and it's going to break, so we've got to figure out where this breaks and what's in the middle, because the spine and the feather doesn't come all the way to the end. And a fluffy feather, it'll end toward, and other feathers too, it'll end and it'll have some wrap to it. So let's look closer at this. Now, I haven't done the ends of it. You'll see how puffy and round that feather is? It's got some good movement to it. And we could make it a little bit taller, a little more dramatic. I don't know that I will. But when we start pointing this, we could point and stay up, oh, half an inch, 3/8 of an inch around this perimeter. Same thing here. And like I said before, we're going to shoot hallmarks, landmarks on this. We're going to shoot points, major points, and then we're going to come down and we're going to carve this. We're not going to point every little undulation on this feather. We're going to point where it basically is. We've got to make sure we model this material in particular in a way that we can reach it to carve it. And that's part of understanding your work, because if someone else models this and they go to great lengths to put all kinds of perfect detail way underneath here, you got to figure out how to carve it. You got to figure out how to cast it too, because casting it with a very complex mold, you know, if you're not getting paid to do that, it's just the money isn't there and the time isn't there. You got to get this done. This is work. This isn't this endless, whenever I feel like it, I'll get it done. I got to do a good job to finish this up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that same type of treatment on these other smaller, fuzzy, fluffy feathers, and these more sturdy feathers won't be quite as rounded and puffy as this one is, or these, but it still has to have a nice layout. And I've got smaller, round-ended tools that I can use to produce the same surface. She's got a nice wing. And once again, this is genre-specific work. This isn't how you do feathers necessarily on an anatomically correct, like if you're doing an eagle or a hawk or something. You wanted it to be really accurate in terms of like looking it up in an Audubon book. You know, this is art. And so it's a lot of fun to do this, but you really need to study good wings, because there's really bad wings out there. And if you don't study good wings, you won't know how to do it. There's some wings that just, and some stones that just have wings on them that just transcend. They're just absolutely out of this world. The Jackson Angel up at Elmwood Cemetery up in Barre, Vermont is really something. And that's a technical achievement because it's produced on a shell rock cross, all one piece. She could be prettier, but there aren't many people that could ever carve a job like that and produce it and do all of the components as well as they're done. And so I always try to study and find all the wings that I can and make notes of them and try to replicate aspects of them when it's appropriate. And these wings need to look really good, because there's not a lot of them showing. They're going to be subdued because they're hidden by the back of the stone, where normally you'd really see, you know, all the wings. And so we want this to be really clear that there's wings on this angel, that this isn't just an allegorical female figure, but that she's actually an angel. And so, but you can do things with clay, and it's practice for your stone. And now there's things to do here. I'm gonna go find, I don't know that I've got one here that's the right length. I'm gonna find a flexible, like a piece of tin that's about this long. I'm gonna look, I may have something on the wall, but I'm not sure. And I'm gonna use that to lay out the spine of this feather so that it's straight, in terms of it's not crooked, wonky. It can be curved, but it should look like it's an anatomical structure that's very determinate, as opposed to being just kind of, these are short and they can bend, and these are supposed to be fluffy. This is supposed to be a strong feather, so I want that spine to look like it's strong. And things like that will help it jump out and balance it out so that it's a better feather, and then a better wing. And as I said before, this is granite that we're doing. We just want to make sure that the person looks at it and understands that we're presenting a feather to them, because it's made out of stone, so they know it's not a feather that's not going to fly. But we want them to just look at it and have a total satisfaction in their comprehension, so there's no visual noise to confuse them or frustrate them and say, well, you know, that'd be a good looking wing, but those feathers don't look right. And so we'll get this all put together, and then we'll try to carve them that as nice as this clay, because man, it's so easy to do clay spontaneous and fast, even when it's a relatively hard clay compared to carving granite. We'll get this on here and try to understand how these strokes work, and then we'll tool the feathers down close, and then hopefully you can go right through with the right tool and just tool them up, and they'll look like actual feathers. Got this wing pretty well finished up. Now I'm starting on this other wing. I did go ahead and move this over a little bit so it's exposed the armature. I'm going to have it run out to the edge of this. I'd really like to have it stick out past it, but it just makes it into a handling issue, and it's nice, it looks great. We're going to have to wrap around her waist at some point to stand this up, and I want to be able to put some block in here to keep off of these, and I don't want to have a little fragile piece sticking out here, and it's just practicality. I mean, you can do it, but I'd rather not. So, but trying to work this in, we'll have to put something for detail back in here feather-wise. I may let her sleeve drape a little bit to try to pick this up, because this will be hard to put some detail. We can put something that looks like feathers in there just to have it, but it'll have to be deep enough that it justifies with the other side, because this is not there. They'd have to go back another probably quarter to half inch there. So we're going to play with drapery a little bit and see what goes on there. And then I want to have her sleeve go down and go out the back. I want to have the very tip of this feather flaring out on this side in the back. So work on this afterwards. And I've been able to get her face pretty good. Keep saying it's really awesome to practice. When you start carving stone, you only have one opportunity to take off or leave just the right amount of volume. And things like the corner of a mouth or around an eye, if you evacuate a little too much, you can age that figure tremendously, or completely change a very placid posture on her face, very calm look, to something where she looks like she's puckering her lips, like she's frowning, like she's dour, even like she's angry. And it's common with some stones, especially that are going to be laid down, to carve her upper lip almost in a sneer. When you've got a stone that's going to be way down and your vantage point is down like this, to try to communicate the expression on her lips. And it looks a little odd when you look straight on, but you're always going to be looking down at her, so you want to accentuate that. So this gives you a chance to play with volume and learn what you're doing, so that when you take that last little bit or leave that last little bit on, you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. So work on these wings after lunch. Okay, it's back down on the deck now, off the sawhorses, and got the majority of the modeling on the wings all wrapped up. Still need to do a little bit right here, and to finish this cuff. I'm not going to do a whole lot with this hand in terms of being real specific and modeling the flower and everything. I'm going to cut this at the very end. I'll cut down her shoulder after everything else is put together. And then I'll establish this hand and the flower. I'll probably sketch this up as a separate standalone model in 1:1 scale, just to carve direct. But she came out pretty good. I did change her
belt just a little bit. I cut about 1/2 inch off of this to lengthen her thorax, make this into her stomach and abdomen, but this should be closer to the bottom where her rib cage would be, and just to lengthen her body a little bit. And she's over 7 heads tall, so it's measures out pretty well. And very happy with these wings. All I gotta do now is carve them that pretty. And I'll probably soften a lot of the detail up here. A lot of times the wings will be pretty smooth around this with just the edges of the feathers, and then work more into the actual fletching on the feathers. But and add a little bit of volume to her lips. Her lips are a little thin, but overall it's coming out pretty good. So do just a little bit of fiddling on the drapery on that extended arm around that hand, but I gotta get it laid down and start on rubber here pretty quick. And I'll have to be careful with that because we're getting into hot temperatures here, and so I'll have to be very careful not to deform the clay at all as I put the silicone on. So we'll go ahead and wrap this video up. It won't be as long as some of them, but real happy with the drapery, real happy with the posture, scale, all of it, and looking forward to cutting stone. So we'll start working towards casting this in the future video. But my name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the virtual stone carving apprenticeship, working on a corrected scale model. Thanks for coming in.